So this is part 2 of constructing the case. If you want to see part 1, I'll leave a link in the description bar down below. So there we are, we have 4 panels ready to make up the case. So we've got a little bit of stitching to do to add the felt for the pockets and things. So if I turn these over, these are going to be the inside of the case. So I've just turned them over and put them in the orientation that we want to stitch them. This one here, we're going to have like a pin cushion, so with layers of felt. So I'm going to show you how to do that one first. So I'll push these out of the way. So I've cut out different heart shapes, different sizes, and these pattern pieces are all in the pattern file that you can get on my website as well. So we have the small, medium and large size hearts. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to stitch the small onto the medium size heart, and I'm going to stitch different layers onto one another to form a sort of a pin cushion with all the thickness of the felt. So I'm just going to sew the grey heart, the small heart, onto the medium heart first, and I'm going to just come through the back because that layer is going to be sandwiched next to another one, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to come at the centre top of the heart, and I'm going to scoop in to do a blanket stitch and catch the end with my needle, and I'm just going to work all the way around the heart doing this. So when I come to the corner, I just make sure that I do the stitch right in the corner so that the thread goes right around the outside. Again, when you come to the point where it's going inwards, if you make sure that you stitch on that furthest in point so that it tethers the thread to that point to make it go right around the edge. I'm then going to put the needle to the back of the work and just knot that. And cut my thread. So now I'm going to stitch the next layers together. I think it has a really nice effect having stitching on each layer. It really brings it together. So I'm going to get a different coloured thread. I think I'm going to go for cream this time. So next I'm going to stitch these two together, but actually I'm going to do not only that, but I'm going to stitch it to this piece of felt as well at the back. So normally for each layer I'll have a different colour of felt, but to make it thicker I've used 2 pieces. So I'm going to come through the back and do exactly the same here, and I'm just going to do the blanket stitch not only through these 2 but also this back one as well. You might want to use some pins to hold it into place because it does wiggle a little bit. So I've got right back round to the beginning. I'm going to poke the thread through the back and knot it off the same way again. So I'm now going to stitch these last 2 pieces together. Now these ones, I could stitch it straight onto there, but I'm just going to make it a bit easier for myself. I'm going to stitch these together using the embroidery thread and then use the invisible thread to stitch it onto here so that I don't have to worry about going through with the embroidery thread. It'll be easier with the invisible thread. So to start off on something where you don't want the thread showing on the back of the work, I'll just make a knot, and I'm going to put the knot like a sandwich between the 2 pieces of felt, and then scoop in to do that first stitch in keeping those pieces of fabric together with my fingers, and then I scoop through the top like as if I'm doing a normal blanket stitch, and that will now keep that together when you start off. And I'm just going to stitch around same as before with just these 2 layers. You could probably do it straight onto this fabric as well, but just to make my life easier, I think it'll just be nicer to do the stitching on this first, and then I'll use the invisible thread to stitch it onto the patterned fabric. So I've now got that piece finished, and I also made these smaller hearts made from a tiny, small and the medium size hearts. There's 2 mediums, 1 small and 1 tiny on this one, to make a flatter piece so that you can just use those to store needles in. So I'm going to stitch those onto there like that, and this one onto here. So this one is 2 trapezoid shapes, and I've done the blanket stitch all the way around, and then I've just stitched a tiny heart onto there as a little bit of a decoration. When I sew that onto the hexagon, I'm going to sew 3 sides to make a pocket shape. This one is going to be the pocket for the zip, and it is a butterfly shape, and again I've done 2 butterfly shapes made of felt, and I've stitched around with the blanket stitch. And when I'm going to put it on here, I'll stitch by hand with the invisible thread just around these sort of sides around the bottom, so that the top is open, so I can pop the scissors in there. So I'm going to do the hand stitching with the invisible thread now to attach those to the hexagon panels. So I've placed this where I want it to be. I've just put it in the centre of one of these panels, and I wanted it to be in line with the points, I thought. So I'm going to have that in that position. I'm just going to pop a pin or 2 in there just to keep it in place, so that it doesn't wiggle around as I'm stitching. I've got a knot in my invisible thread. I say invisible thread, it's the decobob. And I'm going into the fabric in the background, and I'm just going to do the same sort of stitch as I did with when I was stitching around the English paper piecing, but this time I'm swinging around the thread that's been blanket stitched on the outside to keep it in place. And of course I don't want to go right through the hexagon, because it will show on the other side, even if it is decobob, really fine thread. So now I'm all stitched on. I'm going to make a little knot and bury the thread in the little pin cushion area. Snip that. So that is now all together, and I'm going to do the same stitching around these pieces so they're arranged nicely on that panel. When I come to these ones, I just need to make sure that I only stitch down 3 sides, and also do a little bit of reinforcing stitches, so make sure I do them a bit more densely on the edges, so that when it has a little bit more pressure from opening at the top here, it won't come undone. So I'm just going to pop a couple of pins in this one just to make sure it doesn't creep as I'm stitching around, because they do tend to creep, these little pieces of felt. I've got a knot in my thread, and I'm going to come up on the inside of this felted piece so that the knot is sort of hidden, and I'm going to do a few stitches just on this corner to make sure it's nice and secure. And then start stitching along the side. So around the edge of this piece, because there is going to be weight in the pocket, so things in the pocket, I'm just making my stitches a little bit smaller and making sure that I catch a little bit of felt as well as the blanket stitches around the edge, just to make it really secure. I'm now on this end, so I'm just going to make sure that I do a few extra stitches on this side to make sure it's really secure, and then knot it off like so. Do a couple of knots and bury the thread so that it's nice and neat. So that's that pocket finished. So I've now done the same for this little pocket. This is for some scissors, so the scissors will go in there, and I'm going to put a button, and I'm going to attach an elastic hairband, sew that in the same place so that when it's attached I can pull it through there and loop it over the button to keep it secure. So I'm going to place my button here, so I'm just going to put my thread into the fabric and stitch a couple of times. This thread is doubled over and I've already got a knot in the end. I'm just going to trim the ends of the thread there, being careful not to cut it too short or to cut the working thread, just so that there's not a massive bunch of threads. I'm going through my button. This is a vintage button I've had in my stash for ages, and actually I'm going to go through the hair bobble as well. So I'm securing not only the button in place but also the hair bobble at the same time. Now back into the fabric again and pull that button into place. That's it. And I'm going to go through this button and the hair bobble quite a few times to secure it in place. I think one more time should do it. I'm just going to make a knot here a couple of times. And put my thread through the fabric, bury it so that the end isn't exposed. So there we go. There is the bobble. I can actually put it through this side so that it's got a bit more tension on it. There we go, that holds it properly in place there now. So I'm really pleased with that. I've just stitched these hearts on like I did the same with this one. So we need to start thinking about assembling now, and then I'm going to do the closure. I'm going to take these out just for now. So this one was the centre back that I decided, I think. So the front needs to be this one here. It doesn't matter which order you put the different things on the back. That one's going to go there. What I'm going to do actually is put it so that the pocket is opposite to this one, and I planned to put it this side. So I'm going to put that there. So the pocket is opposite where it's going to fold in, so nothing's going to fall out the top of the pocket. Well, hopefully not anyway. And this one can go here, and I think I like to just showcase the edges. Which one will fit the best, and I think those are going to fit there the best. So I'm going to do ladder stitch across here, here and here. So I'm going to start with this one, I think. Put these two together. Just pop a pin there, just to make sure I know which edge I've got to sew first. So I'm going to do a ladder stitch in the fine thread across here, just making sure I make it nice and secure either end, because this is going to be like a hinge. So I'm going to bury my knot in the corner of this hexagon. There we go. And I'm just going to do a ladder stitch the same way as I normally join the hexagons, so exactly the same technique, working the way across this hexagon. I've now stitched right across the top. I'm going to make sure that I've got an extra few stitches just at the end here and knot it to secure. There we go, and I'm going to bury my thread into the fabric. There we go. That's one side secured. I'm just going to join that one there and that one there, and then we'll go to the next stage. So now we have those pieces sewn together. We can fold those into place and attach the button closure. So I'm going to stitch a button to this back edge here. I've chosen one to match the inside bit. I'm going to stitch a elastic hairband with that onto there, and then we'll be able to sew a button on the front which we can close it onto. So I'm going to open it out again, just so that I can sort of reach the back of the fabric, and I'm going to stitch that onto there like that. So I've got my needle threaded from when we sewed the other button on with the, I just used a standard polyester thread for this and the other button. Double the thread over, and made a little knot. So I'm going to put it there, I think. Trim that little bit there. And I'm threading the elastic hair bobble through there like that. And I'm going to stitch a few times just like we did with the other button, just to make sure it's really securely attached. Keep it nice and tight as well. Right, I think that'll do. I'm going to knot this thread onto the where the shaft of the button's sewn on. There we go, that's knotted. And I'm going to bury my thread there. So just off camera I've just stitched this button on the front, but it's the same as how I did the back, but just without the elastic. The one thing I'd like to do is just stitch some of this elastic together so it looks like it's meant to be a tie rather than just a hairband. So I'm going to stitch around there a little bit just to secure it so it looks like a proper loop. So I've got 2 strands of pink embroidery thread, the closest colour that I had in my stash, compared to the hairband, and I've just got a knot gone in through between the button and the hair bobble, and just secured it. I'm just going to try and sort of wrap this. I'm just going to put my needle through the elastic band near the button, just to try and secure it there if I can. If I can't, wind it further up. It is a bit hard to pull through. I'm just going to wind some of the thread around the hair bobble a bit so that it secures it nice and tight. So I'm just going to keep binding it until I get to the point where I haven't got a lot of thread left. And I'm actually going to stitch it to the material underneath just so that it holds on to the fabric of the hexagon. I think that's bound enough, and I'm going to just do a knot at the side here. And bury my threads so that they're nice and tidy and secure. So now we can start to fill the case. I can put pins like this. You can, when you're using it, leave them like upright, but obviously if you've got the case shut, you want them to be nice and flat. We can put needles over this side in the hearts. Like so. Then you've got this space to put your scissors. So I'm going to put mine through the loop there, like this. If you do have, so you're just going to put the scissors in, you could put this loop in instead of that loop, but I'm going to put my glue stick in there, I think, so that that keeps it nice and secure as well. So it's all attached. I've got my packet of embroidery needles in the top there, and I can pop a few different embroidery threads in the little pocket there, so that can fold in. I fold in this side, fold in that side, and then close it with the little bit of elastic. And it just needs straightening up because there are so many layers, but look at that, isn't that a cute little case to keep all your bits and bobs for hand sewing? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye!